Archangel Michael says, "A secret has been released into the air, and it shook the hearts of those who heard it." The words were not ordinary. They carried a weight that pressed down on the room and caused silence to fall. Everyone's eyes widened because what was revealed could not be ignored, and it reached far beyond what the mind could comprehend. Whispers ran across the crowd, each person trying to make sense of what had just been spoken. The energy shifted in that place as though heaven itself leaned down to listen. It was not gossip, not rumor. It was the kind of message that carried both power and fear. People felt their bodies tremble, not knowing whether to believe or deny what they just heard. Yet something inside told them that this revelation was true. It had been hidden for so long, and now it was standing in plain sight. The astonishing truth spread like fire, consuming every heart in its path. Some wept, others gasped, and some could not move at all because deep down they knew the world they thought they knew was about to change forever. Tape Amen to get blessing 333. One voice spoke louder than the rest and it commanded attention without effort. It told them that this was only the beginning and the rest was still unfolding. The crowd leaned in, desperate not to miss a single word. Tears rolled down cheeks as the truth reached the most hidden places of the soul. It was like a mirror reflecting what many had tried to bury. A secret exposed not just about life but about destiny itself. Every heart felt heavy yet somehow lighter at the same time. As though a burden was breaking apart, even while fear tried to take hold. The balance between relief and dread painted every face in the crowd. And though the revelation was shocking, it carried a hidden promise, a sign that what was once broken would soon be healed, but only if they were ready to listen and follow the path revealed to them. Tape Amen to get blessing 444. Archangel Michael says, "The message was not spoken in vain, for heaven itself had arranged this gathering." People were not there by chance, but by divine appointment. They were chosen to hear and chosen to carry what others could not. Some tried to dismiss it, but the chills in their bodies betrayed them. Something greater was at work, something that made them stay even when their minds wanted to run. It was undeniable, like thunder rolling across a silent sky. The words carved themselves into memory, unable to be erased. What was spoken that day would be remembered for generations to come. It was more than a statement. It was a prophecy. The astonishing part wasn't just the message itself, but the timing. It came when they least expected, yet exactly when they needed it most. That was how heaven always worked, in silence. Then suddenly Tape Amen to get blessing 555. The revelation spoke of hidden treasures, unseen doors and promises long delayed. Many felt it was speaking directly to their lives, as if someone had opened the book of their soul. The crowd wasn't just hearing words. They were experiencing destiny. Faces in the crowd lit up with both fear and hope. Some clenched their fists. Others held their hearts. But no one could deny the pull of the moment. They were caught in a web of truth too strong to escape. Even the strongest among them trembled, realizing the magnitude of what was unfolding. Nothing would remain the same after this. The world as they knew it had shifted beneath their feet. And as the truth expanded, it drew a line in the sand. Those who believed and those who doubted. Yet even the doubters could not deny what their spirit felt. Taipei meant to get blessing. 666. The crowd was restless, but the voice that spoke never shook. It was steady, sharp, and filled with authority that could not be challenged. Every sentence carried a force that echoed long after it was spoken. People were reminded of dreams they had long forgotten. Dreams that now came back alive, connected to the astonishing truth revealed before them. Some gasped as they realized the details of their private lives were being unfolded in front of everyone. The air was thick with revelation, and no one dared to break the silence except the one speaking. The atmosphere shifted between awe and shock, like lightning flashing in the middle of the night. Hearts raced, hands trembled, but no one moved from their place. The astonishing thing was not just the message but the fact that so many lives were intertwined with it. Strangers found themselves connected by invisible threads of destiny, all tied together in one revelation. Tape Amen to get blessing 777. The moment grew heavier and the crowd felt as if time itself had stopped. Every heartbeat seemed louder, every breath sharper, as though the air carried the weight of eternity. The truth revealed was too big to ignore, too real to dismiss. Some fell to their knees, unable to hold themselves upright under the force of it. Others clutched at the hands of those beside them, needing an anchor. As the world they knew fell apart, it was no longer a story. It was their reality. The revelation named people, events, and secrets that had been buried deep. People gasped, realizing what they once hid in shadows was now standing in the light. There was no turning back after such a moment. It was astonishing not only for what was said, but for the accuracy. It was as if the speaker had lived every moment of their lives, seen every tear, and heard every silent cry. The exposure was terrifying yet liberating. Tape men to get blessing. 888. Those who thought they were safe suddenly felt exposed. Their hearts raced as the truth crawled closer and closer to their personal story. They wanted to run, but their feet wouldn't move. It was clear that this was no ordinary revelation. It wasn't human knowledge speaking. It was something greater. A force beyond explanation had entered the room and no one could deny it. Some began to weep quietly, realizing the astonishing words were tied to their destiny. It wasn't just about others. It was about them. Every sentence pierced like a blade, yet healed like a balm. Even the strongest skeptics lowered their heads because the power of the message broke through their doubts. There was no shield strong enough to block what had been revealed. The words carried light that no darkness could resist. Type Amen to get blessing. 999. The voice revealed betrayals, hidden plans, and silent intentions that no one else could have known. People turned toward one another in shock, realizing their secrets had been uncovered. The room grew tense, filled with both fear and awe. Yet even in the exposure there was a promise of restoration. What had been hidden was not revealed to destroy but to heal. It was a painful truth but necessary for freedom. The astonishing part was how specific it became. It wasn't vague. It was exact. It mentioned names, moments, and details that left no space for doubt. The speaker declared that what was broken would be rebuilt, but only if people embraced the truth without resistance. It was a call for surrender, and those who resisted felt the heaviness grow stronger upon them. Type Amen to get blessing 10. If you wish to express your support further, you have the option to give super thanks with contributions of up to $20. Archangel Michael says, this revelation was not just for ears, but for spirits. It was meant to awaken what had been asleep for far too long. The astonishment was not just in the words, but in the shift happening inside each listener. Some felt fire run through their chest. Others felt chills down their spine. Their bodies testified to the truth even when their minds tried to deny it. It was not just heard. It was experienced. People who once felt alone realized they were seen. Those who carried silent pain discovered it was known. A wave of emotion swept through the crowd, breaking hardened hearts. The astonishing moment became history in the making. This gathering was not random. It was destined. And those who were there would never forget it. Type Amen to get blessing. 111. The revelation spoke of doors that were about to open. Doors that had been locked for years. Doors that had been impossible to move. Now they were swinging wide and the people could hardly believe it. The crowd gasped as they realized opportunities long denied were finally approaching. It wasn't just about blessings. It was about justice. The astonishing truth was that what had been stolen would be returned. People shouted. Some wept. Others simply stood frozen in disbelief. But deep within, every soul knew it was true. The energy was undeniable. The moment irreversible. And the voice warned them not to take this lightly. It was not just a gift. It was a responsibility to carry this truth, meant to walk differently from this day forward. Type Amen to get blessing. 12:12. The sound of the revelation echoed beyond the walls. It wasn't just the people inside who felt it. Those passing by outside sensed the shift in the atmosphere. The astonishing truth was too powerful to be contained. Every eye was wide, every heart trembling under the weight of what was spoken. No one could leave, even those who wanted to. Something held them still, demanding that they hear to the very end. The crowd began to realize that this wasn't just about them as individuals. It was about generations, about bloodlines, about things that had been hidden for centuries. They were standing in a moment larger than themselves. The astonishing part was that this truth had been whispered in heaven long before it reached earth. Now it was being revealed in front of witnesses so no one could deny its power. Tape Amen to get blessing. 13:13. Some tried to cover their ears, but the words broke through anyway. It wasn't just sound. It was spirit speaking to spirit. The revelation carried force that no human barrier could resist. Tears fell uncontrollably, not from sadness, but from a release long overdue. Hearts that had been heavy for years suddenly felt the beginning of freedom. Something was being unlocked deep within. Others stood in awe, unable to move, feeling frozen in place. The magnitude of what they were experiencing overwhelmed them. Their souls knew that this was a once-in-a-lifetime moment. The astonishing part was how the revelation gave answers to questions they never voiced aloud. Secrets they thought no one knew were being spoken in front of everyone. The exposure was frightening but divine. Taipei meant to get blessing. 1414, the atmosphere thickened as the message grew sharper. It revealed betrayals that had happened behind closed doors, and the crowd gasped as hidden enemies were exposed. No mask could survive under this light. Some clutched their chests as they realized their own names were being touched. Their stories were being spoken, their pain revealed. They knew this wasn't coincidence. It was destiny calling them out. Even those who once doubted the speaker's authority now bowed their heads. They could not deny the astonishing accuracy. It was undeniable truth clothed in fire. People began whispering among themselves, not in mockery, but in awe. They realized heaven was revealing what no man could possibly know. It was shaking their foundations but also rebuilding them. Tape amen to get blessing. 1515, Archangel Michael says the revelation was sent not to shame but to heal. The astonishing truth was being poured out like medicine for wounded souls. Those who had carried silent burdens felt chains breaking. The crowd roared with emotion, a mix of cries and shouts of freedom. Some embraced strangers beside them, realizing they were all connected in this divine moment. It was bigger than fear, bigger than doubt. The astonishing power of the message was that it didn't just point out brokenness. It promised restoration. What was stolen would be returned. What was lost would be found. What was dead would rise again. It was not just a word. It was a turning point. A line drawn in history that none of them would forget. This gathering had become the stage for heaven's unveiling. Tape amen to get blessing. 1616, the truth continued pouring like a flood and no one could stop it. Every revelation exposed something hidden. Every sentence struck with precision. It was both terrifying and liberating. The astonishing thing was how people began to see themselves differently. They were no longer victims of silence. They were witnesses of truth. Their spirits awakened to possibilities they had never imagined. What once seemed impossible now felt near. The weight of despair began lifting, replaced by an atmosphere of hope. People felt they were standing at the doorway of something new. Even those who had lost everything began to smile faintly. For the first time in years, they felt that restoration was real and it was reaching out for them. Taipei men to get blessing. 1717, the revelation began to move deeper, touching places no one expected. It wasn't only about hidden enemies or silent betrayals. It was about promises buried in time. The astonishing truth was that heaven had been watching all along. People gasped as they realized that even their smallest struggles were seen. Nothing had been overlooked, nothing forgotten. Every tear had been counted, and now it was being spoken aloud. The crowd could no longer contain themselves. Some cried out, others fell silent, but all were consumed by the weight of what was happening. It felt as if the ground itself trembled under the force of the words. The astonishing power in the revelation made it clear that this was not ordinary. It wasn't coincidence. It was destiny unfolding in real time. Everyone present knew they would never forget this day. Tape amen to get blessing 1818. The voice shifted softer now, but no less powerful. It reminded them that this unveiling was not just about exposure. It was about preparation. Something greater was on the horizon. And this was the first step. People leaned forward, holding on to every word as if it were life itself. Their eyes burned with anticipation, waiting for the next revelation. The silence was sacred, charged with energy that no one could deny. The astonishing part was that even those who resisted began to break down. They could not escape the truth when it stood directly in front of them. Their hearts melted under the pressure of divine fire. And as more secrets poured out, people began to see clearly. The fog was lifting and reality was no longer hidden. What had been covered for years was now standing in plain sight. Type amen to get blessing 1919. The revelation turned toward the future, painting a picture of what was yet to come. It spoke of breakthroughs, of doors swinging wide open, of promises finally being fulfilled. The astonishment grew even stronger as hope entered the room. People's eyes lit up, realizing this wasn't just about endings, but beginnings. Every painful truth carried with it the seed of restoration. The atmosphere shifted from heaviness to possibility. Some clutched their hearts, feeling warmth spread through them. It was as if invisible chains were falling off their souls. Freedom was no longer a dream. It was touching them right now. The astonishing moment revealed that everything they had lost was not gone forever. What was taken would be returned and what was broken would rise again. This truth felt like fire and water at the same time. Type amen to get blessing 2020. Archangel Michael says, this moment will mark you for the rest of your life. What you have heard cannot be erased, and what you have seen cannot be denied. The astonishment is proof that heaven has chosen you to witness this. The crowd erupted with cries, shouts, and whispers of awe. Some fell on their knees, overwhelmed by the power of it all. Others stood in silence, tears flowing without end. The astonishing truth was that every person present was now connected forever. They would carry this revelation like a seal upon their hearts. No one could leave unchanged. As the voice concluded, the room remained heavy with energy. Even in the silence that followed, the revelation still echoed in their souls. It was not the end. It was only the beginning. Type amen to get blessing. 2121. The silence after the revelation was almost louder than the words themselves. People stood frozen, their minds racing, their hearts pounding. No one dared to break the atmosphere that had been created. It was astonishing how one moment could change everything. The air itself felt different, as though something unseen was still hovering over them. Every breath carried weight, every thought burned with fire. Some whispered quietly among themselves, unable to hold back their shock. They tried to make sense of what had just happened, but the truth was too vast to capture in words. It was bigger than language, deeper than comprehension. The astonishing part was not only the revelation, but the effect it had on everyone. Strangers who never spoke before now shared the same awe, bound together by what they had just witnessed. Taipei meant to get blessing. 2222. The voice reminded them that this truth would travel far beyond that room. It was meant to echo across cities, nations, and hearts that were waiting unknowingly. What began as a moment was now a movement. People felt chills down their spines as they realized they were chosen witnesses. They were standing at the center of something history would one day remember. The astonishment wasn't just in hearing. It was in being part of it. The revelation had cracked open what was hidden in darkness. It had forced into light what many had feared would never be revealed. And now there was no going back. Even those who wanted to remain in shadows could no longer hide. The astonishing truth was alive, breathing, and unstoppable. It would continue to unfold whether they embraced it or not. Tip a men to get blessing. 2323. The crowd shifted from fear into trembling hope. They realized this was not the end of their story. It was a new chapter. The astonishing truth was an invitation to step into destiny. Some lifted their hands. Others bowed their heads. The atmosphere was filled with surrender, with hearts ready to receive what was next. It was as though heaven itself was leaning closer. The voice carried promises of restoration, not just for individuals, but for families and generations. Everything that had been broken would be touched by this moment. The astonishing part was how far the ripple would travel. The crowd knew that what they heard would reach those not even present. Their children, their children's children would be marked by this day. The revelation was eternal, unshakable, and unforgettable. Tape a man to get blessing. 2400 hours 24. The gathering ended, but no one wanted to leave. People lingered in silence, still caught in the pull of what had just happened. The astonishment was too strong to walk away from. Conversations began slowly, with hesitant voices sharing what they felt. Each story revealed that no two people had experienced it the same way. Yet all were touched. It was as though the revelation had been tailor-made for each soul. Some spoke of burdens lifting, others of hope being restored. Some even said they felt physical healing in their bodies. The astonishing truth had not only spoken, it had transformed. And though the voice was silent now, its echo remained. It followed them out the doors, into the streets, into their homes. The astonishing truth was alive, and it would not fade. Tape to get blessing. 2525. The night after the revelation, people could not sleep. Their minds replayed the words over and over as though etched in fire across their memory. No dream could compete with the reality they had just experienced. Families gathered together, whispering about what they heard. Some were still trembling, others were filled with new courage. The astonishing truth had settled into every home like an unseen guest. Neighbors looked at one another differently the next day. There was an unspoken bond between them created in that single astonishing moment. They all knew they had witnessed something sacred. The astonishing part was that even those who had tried to resist could no longer deny what had happened. The truth was living, breathing, and walking among them. Now, Taipei meant to get blessing. 26:26. The days that followed were filled with unexpected changes. People began to notice signs around them, doors opening, burdens lifting, hearts softening. It was as though the revelation had set a new energy in motion. Some began to reconnect with loved ones they hadn't spoken to in years. Forgiveness suddenly seemed possible, where before it felt impossible. The astonishment lay not only in words, but in actions that followed. Even the streets felt different, as though joy was rising out of the very ground. Strangers smiled at each other with knowing eyes. They were all part of something larger than themselves. And though life carried on, no one could shake the awareness that history had shifted. The astonishing truth had rewritten what the future would look like. Taipei meant to get blessing. 27:27. The voice that once spoke returned to them in whispers within their spirit, not through sound, but through presence. It reminded them daily of the revelation they had received. Some heard it in dreams, others in the silence of the morning. The astonishing thing was that no one experienced it the same way. Yet all recognized it was real. It was beyond imagination. Children who had been restless began to sleep peacefully. Elders who carried sorrow began to smile again. The revelation was still working, still transforming. And the astonishing truth was this. The revelation had not ended in that room. It had only begun. Its reach was limitless, touching every life that was ready to receive. Taipei meant to get blessing. 28:28. Archangel Michael says, "The astonishment you have witnessed is not a coincidence. It is a call, a signal, a divine interruption to remind you that you are chosen." The revelation came to awaken you into destiny. People began writing down their experiences, journaling every sign they noticed. Some spoke of chills, others of sudden warmth in their hearts. All of it was confirmation that the message was alive within them. The astonishing reality was that miracles began to unfold quietly. Jobs were restored, debts were forgiven, health returned, and hearts healed. Every testimony pointed back to that single moment of revelation. And those who doubted now believed because the evidence was undeniable. The astonishing truth had planted seeds and now the fruit was visible for all to see. Taipei meant to get blessing. 29:29.